Daniel Reyes had always been a light sleeper. Years of military training made it impossible for him to relax completely, even aboard the peaceful research station orbiting the quiet blue world below. The station, called Horizon Gate, was one of the first true cooperation projects between humans and several alien civilizations after decades of distrust and small conflicts. Most nights were calm. The hum of the engines, the distant vibration of artificial gravity generators, and the faint glow of starlight through reinforced windows created a strange but comforting rhythm. That night was different. Daniel woke before he understood why. His eyes opened slowly. The room was dark except for a thin line of blue light along the floor, indicating night cycle safety mode. He listened carefully. No alarms, no shouting, just silence. Then he heard it. A soft sound near the door. The sensor blinked once. Someone was requesting entry. Daniel sat up immediately. Visitors were not allowed in private quarters during rest hours unless there was an emergency. He reached for the console beside his bed. Before he could speak, the door slid open. A figure stepped inside. Daniel froze. The visitor was an alien woman. Tall and graceful, with silver skin that reflected the dim light like polished metal. Thin glowing lines traced across her arms and neck, pulsing faintly with shifting colors. She wore ceremonial armor, though it looked damaged and stained with dark patches. He recognized her instantly. Cyril. She was a Lorethi diplomat, one of the most important figures aboard Horizon Gate. Her species had once fought humans fiercely, but recent peace talks were changing everything. She should not have been here. And yet she stood in his doorway, breathing unevenly as if she had run a long distance. Daniel slowly stood from the bed, careful not to make sudden movements. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. Cyril hesitated. Her glowing markings flickered between pale blue and dull violet, signs of emotional conflict, if Daniel remembered correctly from cross-species training. She stepped forward slowly, almost unsure of herself. "In the middle of the night," she said softly, her voice slightly distorted by translation implants, "I have come to request assistance." Daniel nodded once. "Okay, what kind of assistance?" She paused. Then she spoke words that surprised him. "Can you please clean me, human?" For a moment Daniel did not understand. The sentence felt strange, almost misplaced. Then he noticed the details. Her armor was covered in thick industrial residue, black and gray chemical stains that smelled faintly metallic. Some areas had hardened into crust-like patches. She looked ashamed. Daniel's training told him that Lorethi culture placed enormous importance on ceremonial appearance, especially for diplomats. Being visibly unclean could be seen as a deep loss of honor. "You're not injured?" he asked gently. "No physical damage," she replied. "Only dishonor." Daniel's expression softened. He moved slowly toward the sanitation unit built into the wall. The station provided multi-species cleaning tools designed to avoid harming different biological systems. "Sit down," he said calmly. "We'll take care of it." She hesitated again, as if waiting for laughter or rejection. When none came, she slowly lowered herself onto a chair near the wall. Daniel activated warm, purified water and selected neutral cleaning compounds safe for Lorethi's skin. As he worked, he kept his movements respectful and professional. There was nothing awkward in his actions, just simple care. Cyril watched him closely. "You do not question why I chose you," she said quietly. Daniel shrugged slightly. "You knocked on my door." "That means you needed help." She seemed confused by the simplicity of the answer. The stains were stubborn. Some required gentle scraping tools. Daniel worked patiently, never rushing. After a while, Cyril spoke again. "Today's negotiation failed," she said. During the final moments, a coolant pipe burst. I was covered in waste fluid. Many witnessed it. Some laughed. Her glowing lines dimmed. "In Lorethi society, such an event is symbolic. It suggests weakness." Daniel paused briefly but continued cleaning. "Accidents happen," he said. She shook her head slightly. "This was not an accident, but proving that may be impossible." Silence settled between them again. Outside, the station rotated slowly, stars drifting past the small window. "You could have gone to medical," Daniel said eventually. "I did not wish to be seen," she answered, "and humans are known for restoring damaged things." Daniel smiled faintly at that. "Well, we try." As the residue slowly disappeared, the polished silver of her armor returned. Her glowing markings stabilized into a calm blue-green. She watched his face carefully. "You do not feel superior," she observed. "What do you mean?" You assist me without expectation of status or reward. Daniel thought about it for a moment. That's just normal where I come from. She seemed thoughtful, almost surprised by the idea that kindness could be normal. When the last stain was removed, he stepped back. There, he said, good as new. Cyril looked down at herself. Her posture straightened slightly, confidence returning in small increments. You have restored more than appearance, she said quietly. Daniel waved a hand lightly. You'll handle tomorrow just fine. She stood slowly. For a moment she looked as if she wanted to say something else, but instead she simply bowed her head, a formal Lurethi gesture of deep respect. I will remember this. Then she turned and left the room. The door closed behind her with a soft hiss. Daniel sat back down on his bed, unsure what had just happened. He had only helped someone clean up, but something about the moment felt important. The next morning, whispers spread through the station. Some crew members spoke about sabotage. Others mentioned seeing Cyril walking confidently through the diplomatic halls, her armor shining brighter than before. And unexpectedly, several Lurethi began watching Daniel with new curiosity. He ignored the attention. To him, it had been a simple act. But in a place where history between species was still fragile, simple acts could change everything. Later that day, security reports confirmed Daniel's suspicion. The coolant pipe had indeed been sabotaged. Someone wanted the peace talks to fail. And unknowingly, Daniel had already stepped into the center of the conflict. That night, as he prepared to sleep, he wondered if Cyril would return, not because she needed cleaning, but because sometimes trust began with the smallest moments, a knock on the door in the middle of the night, and a human choosing kindness without hesitation. He turned off the lights and closed his eyes. Outside, the stars continued their silent watch, unaware that a fragile alliance between worlds had shifted slightly because one human had treated an alien with simple dignity. And somewhere else on the station, Cyril stood before a mirror, looking at her reflection, not as someone who had lost honor, but as someone who had learned something new about humanity. Tomorrow would bring challenges. But tonight, hope felt stronger. The morning after the midnight visit felt different for Daniel Reyes, even though he tried to follow his normal routine. He woke early, exercised quietly, and prepared for duty like always. But as he stepped into the main corridor of Horizon Gate, he immediately sensed a change. Some of the Lurethi crew watched him, not openly, not aggressively, just curious glances that lingered a little longer than usual. Daniel ignored it and continued walking toward the maintenance sector. His assignment was simple: assist engineering teams with inspection protocols after yesterday's coolant system failure. But inside, he already knew the failure was no accident. Security reports had confirmed sabotage. Someone wanted the diplomatic talks to collapse, and somehow he had become connected to it, even if only by helping Cyril recover her composure. As he reached the maintenance deck, Chief Engineer Elena called him over. You heard the news? She asked. About sabotage? Daniel nodded. She lowered her voice. They're saying it was targeted, not just random damage. Whoever did it wanted maximum embarrassment during the meeting. Daniel frowned slightly. That means Cyril was the real target. Looks that way, Elena said. And now everyone's on edge. Daniel helped inspect damaged pipe sections. The coolant residue still stained parts of the floor, the same dark material that had covered Cyril's armor. As he worked, he thought about her expression the previous night. The quiet shame, the hesitation before asking for help. It felt strange to him that something so small, being dirty, could hold such heavy meaning. But different cultures saw honor differently. After finishing the inspection, Daniel returned to the main corridor. A message notification appeared on his wrist console. Request for presence, diplomatic chamber. Sender, SCREL. Daniel blinked in surprise. He was not a diplomat. Humans usually kept security personnel far from negotiation tables. Still, he accepted. The diplomatic chamber was large and circular, filled with floating holographic displays and long, curved seating platforms designed for multiple species. Representatives from several alien races sat around the table. When Daniel entered, conversation paused briefly. Cyril stood near the center. Her armor was perfectly restored, polished to a mirror-like shine. Her glowing markings were calm and steady. She turned toward him. Human Daniel Reyes, she said formally. Please stand here. She indicated a place beside her. Daniel hesitated for only a moment before stepping forward. Whispers moved around the chamber. A human standing beside a Lorethi diplomat during negotiations was unusual. One of the rival delegates spoke immediately. "Is this necessary?" the alien asked, voice sharp. "Humans are not part of this council." Cyril remained calm. "This human is relevant to recent events," she replied. "His presence is appropriate." Daniel stood quietly, unsure what she intended. The meeting resumed. Discussions about resource sharing and territorial agreements filled the room. Tension rose quickly as accusations about sabotage were exchanged. Eventually, one delegate addressed Cyril directly. "You suffered a public humiliation yesterday. Perhaps you are no longer fit to lead these talks." The room fell silent. Daniel felt the air grow heavier. Cyril did not react immediately. Her glowing markings shifted slowly from calm blue to deep gold. Then she spoke. "In Lorethi tradition, appearance reflects internal strength," she said. "Yesterday, I believed my honor was damaged beyond repair." She turned slightly toward Daniel. "But I learned something." The council watched closely. "A human showed me that honor is not destroyed by failure. It is rebuilt by action." She placed one hand against the table. "This human assisted me without judgment or expectation. That is strength, and strength is what we need if peace is to exist." Some delegates looked uncomfortable. Others seemed thoughtful. Daniel felt slightly embarrassed but remained silent. Evidence from the sabotage investigation was then presented. Engineering reports confirmed intentional damage. Security footage revealed masked individuals entering restricted areas. The tone of the meeting shifted immediately. Instead of blaming Cyril, the council focused on finding the culprits. After several hours, negotiations paused. As delegates began leaving, Cyril approached Daniel. "You stood quietly," she said. "You didn't ask me to talk," he replied. She nodded approvingly. "You understand presence without dominance. Many species struggle with that." Daniel smiled faintly. "I just followed your lead." They walked together through the corridor. Crew members stepped aside respectfully as they passed. "You changed more than you realize," Cyril said softly. "Some Lorethi now question their assumptions about humans." "That sounds dangerous," Daniel joked lightly. "It is necessary," she replied. Suddenly, alarms sounded. Red lights flashed across the corridor. Daniel's instincts activated immediately. "What's happening?" he asked. Cyril's markings flickered with alarm. A station-wide announcement echoed through the halls. "Security alert. Unauthorized armed presence detected in diplomatic sector." Daniel moved closer to Cyril. "Stay behind me," he said automatically. "I am not fragile," she replied. "I know," he said calmly, "but right now you're a target." They moved quickly toward a secondary corridor. Distant sounds of running footsteps echoed behind them. Daniel's training told him they were being hunted. "They're coming for you," he said quietly. "Yes," Cyril replied. "Peace threatens those who profit from war." They turned a corner just as blaster fire struck the wall behind them. Energy sparks lit the corridor. Daniel grabbed her arm and pulled her toward a maintenance access tunnel. The narrow passage forced them to move single file. Emergency lights flickered. Behind them, footsteps followed. Daniel activated a manual door lock, slowing the attackers. "Security should arrive soon," he said. "Your species remains calm in danger," Cyril observed. "Not calm," he corrected. "Focused." She seemed to consider that carefully. As they moved deeper into the maintenance tunnels, Daniel felt a strange sense of familiarity. This was where the sabotage had occurred. The same location where Cyril's humiliation had begun. Now it had become their escape route. Suddenly, debris blocked the path ahead. Daniel examined it quickly. "We can clear this." He lifted heavy metal fragments despite the strain on his muscles. Cyril watched him with growing respect. "Humans are smaller than many species," she said, "yet you carry enormous determination." Daniel grunted as he pushed the last piece aside. "Stubbornness helps." They continued forward. Eventually, they reached a sealed security chamber. Daniel activated the emergency lock. Silence returned. Both of them breathed heavily. "You protected me," Cyril said quietly. "That's my job," he replied. She shook her head slightly. "No, you protected me because you chose to." He did not respond immediately. Outside, security teams moved through the corridors, capturing the attackers. Minutes later, the threat ended. Daniel leaned against the wall, finally allowing himself to relax. Cyril studied him carefully. "In Lorethi culture, asking for cleaning means accepting vulnerability," she said. "You did not use that against me." Daniel shrugged. Trust goes both ways. Her markings glowed brighter. I believe this is why humans change the galaxy, he laughed softly. That sounds like too much responsibility. Perhaps, she said, but I see it clearly now. Later that evening, news spread across Horizon Gate. The extremists responsible for sabotage had been caught. Peace talks would continue, and many began speaking about the human who stood beside the Lorethi diplomat, not as a guard, but as an equal. Daniel returned to his room that night exhausted. As he closed his eyes, he realized that the midnight visit had started something larger than he ever expected. A simple act of kindness had grown into trust, and trust had become strength. But he also knew something else. The galaxy was watching now. And whatever happened next would shape more than just one station. It could change the future of two species forever. The station felt quieter after the attack, but it was not peaceful silence. It was the heavy kind, filled with watchfulness and hidden tension. Horizon Gate had survived another crisis, yet everyone understood that the situation was fragile. Trust between species was growing, but enemies still existed in the shadows. Daniel Reyes walked slowly through the observation corridor, hands behind his back. Outside the massive transparent panels, the blue planet below turned slowly, clouds moving across its surface like drifting thoughts. Security patrols had increased. Armed guards from multiple species now worked side by side. That alone felt like progress. He heard footsteps behind him. He did not need to turn to know who it was. Cyril stopped beside him. Her armor reflected the starlight, clean and flawless. Her glowing markings shone brighter than before, calm but strong. "You are thinking deeply," she said. Daniel smiled slightly. "That obvious?" "To my species, yes," she replied gently. They stood quietly together for a moment. After the attack, Cyril had become even more respected among the council. Her decision to stand beside a human had changed many opinions. The extremists had failed, but their actions had shown how important the peace talks truly were. "The council will finalize the treaty tomorrow," she said. "That's good," Daniel replied. "It is, but danger may still exist." He nodded. "I figured." She turned toward him. "You saved my life." He shook his head lightly. "Security arrived in time." "You created time for them to arrive," she corrected. Daniel looked back at the planet below. "I just did what anyone would do." She studied him carefully, as if trying to understand something deeper. "Not anyone," she said quietly. "Many would protect their own species first. You protected me without hesitation." He did not answer immediately. Finally, he said, "Where I come from, protecting someone who needs help is just the right thing to do." Her markings shifted to a warm, golden color. "I am beginning to understand humanity," she said. Later that day, Daniel received a surprising message. He was officially requested to attend the final treaty ceremony. As a representative, he almost laughed when he read it. He was just a security officer, but the request came directly from the council leadership. Apparently, many delegates believed his presence symbolized the new relationship between species. The ceremony chamber filled slowly with diplomats, observers, and media drones recording every moment. Daniel stood near the side, uncomfortable in formal attire but determined to remain professional. Cyril entered last. The room fell silent. She walked confidently toward the center platform. Her voice carried clearly across the chamber. "Today, we sign more than an agreement," she said. "We choose a future where trust replaces fear." She paused. "And sometimes trust begins with small acts." Her gaze shifted briefly toward Daniel. Several delegates followed her line of sight. Daniel felt every eye in the room on him. He resisted the urge to step backward. The treaty was signed. Applause echoed through the chamber. For the first time in decades, humans and Lorethi officially declared cooperation. But celebration lasted only seconds. An alarm blared suddenly. Red lights flashed again. Daniel's instincts activated instantly. He scanned the room. A small drone dropped from the ceiling, not a media unit, but a weaponized device. It fired toward the council platform. Daniel moved without thinking. He stepped forward and pulled Cyril aside just as energy bolts struck the space where she had stood. Security guards reacted quickly, disabling the drone. Panic spread briefly through the crowd, but it ended fast. The threat was neutralized. Daniel's heart pounded as he checked Cyril for injuries. She was unharmed. "You moved before thought," she said quietly. "That's training," he replied. "No," she said softly. "That is instinct." Security confirmed that the drone was a final desperate attempt by remaining extremists. The treaty, however, had already been signed. Nothing could stop it now. As Com returned to the chamber, Cyril turned toward the assembled delegates. She raised her hand. "Today," she said, "we witnessed the strength of humanity again." Daniel wished she would stop drawing attention to him, but he remained silent. "My people once believed humans were unpredictable and dangerous," she continued. "We did not understand their resilience or their loyalty." She stepped closer to him. "This human showed us that honor is not defined by perfection. It is defined by action." The room listened carefully. "Days ago, I entered his room during the night in shame. I asked for cleaning. He offered dignity instead." A quiet murmur spread across the chamber. Daniel felt his face grow warm. Cyril turned to the crowd again. "That moment changed me. And it changed our future." Applause began slowly, then grew louder. Daniel felt uncomfortable, but also strangely proud. After the ceremony ended, he returned to his quarters, exhausted. He expected silence. Instead, he found Cyril waiting outside his door. "You are becoming difficult to avoid," he joked lightly. She tilted her head slightly, a gesture he had learned meant amusement. "I wish to speak privately," she said. He opened the door and stepped aside. She entered slowly, looking around the room. The memory of her first visit seemed to hang quietly in the air. "I no longer require cleaning," she said softly. Daniel smiled. "I noticed," she paused, "but I wish to return to the place where everything began." He leaned against the wall, listening. "My people believe moments of transformation must be honored," she continued. "This room represents such a moment for me." Daniel nodded slowly. "I'm glad it helped." "It did more than help," she said. "It showed me that strength and kindness can exist together." They stood in comfortable silence. Finally, she said, "What will you do now that peace is achieved?" He shrugged. "Probably keep doing my job." She studied him carefully. "You are content with simple purpose." "Simple doesn't mean unimportant," he replied. Her markings brightened again. "I am learning that." She moved toward the door but paused. "I would like to continue learning from you," she said quietly. "If you are willing." Daniel nodded. "Yeah, I'd like that." She gave a small, respectful bow, less formal than before, more personal. As she left, Daniel realized something had changed between them. Not romance, not obligation, trust. Outside the window, the stars seemed brighter. News of the treaty spread quickly across systems. Humans and Lorethi began new joint missions. Cultural exchanges started, and among the Lorethi, a new phrase quietly appeared. "When you feel lost, seek the human." Not because humans were superior, but because humans reminded others that dignity could always be restored. Weeks later, Horizon Gate felt lighter. Daniel continued his routine, but he often found Cyril visiting, sometimes for advice, sometimes simply for conversation. The galaxy had not become perfect, but it had taken a step forward. And it all began with a knock on a door in the middle of the night, and a human choosing kindness without hesitation.